Hi Hinsters, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel, and if you're new, welcome too. My name is Hinny, I am a spiritual astrologer. Check out the description box below if you'd like a reading. I am, working my way through my video to-do list, and today we are on Pallas, or Pallas Athena, in the birth chart. And Pallas, is known also as Minerva, and Pallas is, I believe, the third biggest asteroid we currently know. And if you take a look at your birth chart, you may find her represented by a symbol similar to the Venus symbol, but instead of a circle, it's like a diamond on top of a cross. That is Pallas. And Pallas is a goddess born totally out of pain, quite literally. In many of the stories, the kind of womb that Pallas came out of was none other than the head of Jupiter. And Jupiter complained of headache and had Hephaestus, I think that's how you pronounce it, Hephaestus, the god of forges or axes and stuff, to split open his head with an axe to reveal, you guessed it, to reveal Pallas. And Pallas is typically associated also, like, very broadly with ruling wisdom, truth, understanding, war strategy as well, but also with peace, inventiveness, certain healing practices, also certain animals, spirit animals, owls, spiders, spinning, weaving, also bright-eyedness, and also grey vision and blindness. Very interesting. And I kind of see her as the Eight of Swords in the Tarot. And she is the ruler of Athens as well, the Greek city. She is the savior of cities. She's the founder of civil governments. And the spear that you often see Pallas carrying is often posited against a snake at her feet. And that's a representation, or is considered often to be a representation, of the triumph of knowledge over ignorance. So very interesting. And in fact, the Greeks called Pallas the spear shaker. She's also she's also the bringer of olive trees. She is the defender of virginity. Although, as we will touch on in a bit, Pallas kind of represents also spiritual blurrings of visions. Kind of goes back to this grey-eyedness, this blurring of visions and actions that are taken from seeing red. She also bears the aegis, I think that's how you pronounce it, the aegis, or like an impenetrable chest shield. And she is said to be mostly unaffected by things like romance. She also rules friendship in that sort of sense of fighting alongside someone or something as an ally. But with Pallas, it seems that there is often this theme of things messing up big time, or things being a huge ache whenever men or masculine authorities are involved, or masculine energy is overly involved. And these forces are not better than Pallas, but they are in fact matched equally to the power of Pallas. Yet, wherever we have Pallas in our birth charts can tell us where or how we let ourselves be taunted into rising to unnecessary challenges, or rising to the wrong challenge. And Pallas may be a powerful teacher then of picking our battles. But we might be wondering why sometimes Pallas, and why sometimes Pallas Athena. So why are there these two names? Well, Athena is the name of Pallas's best friend in many of the stories. And in these stories, Athena was said to be accidentally killed by Pallas when the two were sort of challenged to practice sparring together. but like instead of dummy weapons, they were using real lethal weapons. And this was kind of unbeknownst to Pallas. And in some stories, she also defeated Mars in battle. And in other stories, she beat Poseidon in this sort of democratic competition to have a city named after one of the two gods, Pallas or Poseidon. And the city, which came then to be named Athena. And in other stories, we are told that it was Pallas who slayed Medusa. And even though Medusa was like a devotee to the temple of Athena, this was still what happened. And Medusa had been raped basically by Poseidon and was not the real villain in the story. Again, we have this sense of masculinity being this sort of overarching authority. It was often considered that Poseidon was in the right to enter the temple of Athena, where men were not supposed to be, but to enter this temple and being a god, such a god as he is, to enter that temple and to rape Pallas, sorry, not Pallas, to rape Medusa, that was considered like just to be the nature of men. And so we kind of have Pallas seeing that as something which overarches the agency of Medusa, and so she goes and slays Medusa. In this way we get this idea then that Pallas may be about that part of our lot that has to do with strategizing and jumping to conclusions and also shooting the messenger, or like martyring the self with a sort of pick-me spirit as well. That's very Pallas Athena, and a deep desire also to penetrate or push through. And I would say that Pallas also teaches a lot about jealousy and passionate contests of merit. Okay, so let's go through the houses then. So for those with Pallas in the first house, it's going to be very brief. I do have a lot of videos to get through and not a lot of time, but for those with Pallas in the first house, you are also Pallas rising. So your personality then is somehow Pallasian, shall we call it. Perhaps you are upstanding or astute, you are a strong friend, a wise character. And I think one challenge with this placement here may be that you jump too readily to battle. For Pallas in the second house, this is strategic spending. This is wise eating. I have this placement in Leo. I also have Jupiter in Leo, so it's very interesting that they're both there for me. But this is wise dieting. This is trying to find the most upstanding way to contribute to things. This is also where one challenge might be spending blindly on the wrong people or the wrong things and having to really, maybe not so much having to learn from that. It depends if you have other planets there as well, what else is going on, but spending could be a big thing. Spending on the wrong people and the wrong things. Pallas in the third house then is perhaps one of the finest placements, I think, for like wise thinkers and strategists, and for relating to things in a very civil way. There could be also some special connection with siblings that also involves battle or strong friendship. And a challenge here can be too readily challenging or rising to challenges from siblings or from neighbors or people like in your immediate surroundings. You could be a scrappy person as well in your local area. Pallas in the fourth house then could mean a kind of murkiness or blindness surrounding your past or where you came from. Perhaps you are very shy or resistant or slow to things like competition. And one of the biggest subconscious things revealed in your life is going to be something to do with protection or an urge to defend. For Pallas in the fifth house, your strategic moves could easily pay off. Also, children enjoy high favor, and that could be human children, but also it contains the fifth house pets and plants and any kind of thing that you have created with that love that's like, this is my child, my baby. And there might be lots of joy as well had from things like fighting and competition. Maybe you actually do some kind of hobby or martial art, and there may be less compulsion as well to date or fall in love. You might be quite content, or more of a strategic sort of skeptical data. With Pallas in the 6th house, you may be protective of people who work under you. You could be inventive when it comes to fixing bad situations. And there are like clever tips and tricks here for improving your career prospects, because the 6th house does trine the 10th house. So even though it's the house of bad fortune, it's considered a bit better than the house of bad spirit, which is the 12th house, because it makes that trine to the 10th in that natural way. I do see more benefits with this placement than negatives, but one challenge could be like being unlucky in terms of accusing or eliminating the wrong person. For Pallas in the 7th house, your partners are somehow Pallasian. Your partners could be very protective, or like a best friend to you, or maybe they have a strategic type of career or craft. And you may view people generally as good and as valuable, sort of like allies to befriend. And one challenge here for Pallas in the 7th is perhaps that your partners may be less romantic than you would like. With Pallas in the 8th house, there is probably some strong desire or role in your life that involves defending other people's things, whether they be physical, like money, or assets, or more abstract, like people's secrets or confidential data. Pallas in the 9th house gives you strategy, of course, in terms of teaching. So you could actually be a literal teacher of strategy of some sort, maybe like logistics lecturer. And also it can give strong sort of diplomatic types. You might have like a firm, no nonsense faith in life as well, or trust. And this is a good placement also for things like referees, judges, mediators. One possible challenge with this placement could be contesting teachers, or like making big mistakes that are related somehow to higher education. Pallas in the 10th house then gives a highly strategic person, or someone whose life is full of big strategic action taking. This is the highest heaven house. It's the 10th house, an angular house. It's a big praxis action house. And the career or the reputation for you then could even be somehow Pallasian. You could be known, I don't know, as like a blessed, highly favored kind of person. Obviously, you scale this down to your particular situation and context. It doesn't mean that everyone with a placement in the 10th house is a celebrity, but you could be known to have favor in some sense. And also you could be known to have big enemies. This is quite interesting. And a challenge with this placement, of course, means that you might jump to the wrong battle based on a sense of duty to the public, or because your reputation is somehow Pallasian. Pallas in the 11th house really emphasizes then the Pallas Athena best friends forever vibes. And I think your friends could be somehow Pallasian and very loyal and unmoving. You could have good spirit guide connections with owls or olive trees, spiders, and you might have big wishes to be popular, or to be pure, or to be the best kind of ally that you can be in some sense. And generally I see this as a great placement, though for some this could give a certain blindness to one's own blessings, with a little bit of like squandering or wasting or taking for granted slightly. Finally then, with Pallas in the 12th house, there is here the untapped strategist, or the dark horse candidate. This could be like, I don't know, the person you don't expect becoming the prefect, or being nominated for something very important and people just didn't expect it. Like you could also be an underdog of some sort. Of course, the 12th house brings many challenges as well. This is the house of stuff like self-undoing. And the Pallasian varieties of this include pushing away good people, or not being able to see that your parents or your teachers are setting you up to fail. Remember, with Pallas, we have a lot of these patterns of people above her telling her to do something that results in a disaster, or like because of something that someone, a god above her did, she goes and takes this disastrous action, or this action that was not really actually based on logic. It was more kind of quite obedient or subordinate. And that's quite interesting. And there is this element of, yes, people setting you up to fail, whether they do that like deliberately or with evil intent or not. There's this sense of that happening, and it being like a curse for some people with this placement. And also, like, there can be a kind of anti-romance that can lead you to being isolated. And anyway, the 12th house, on a more positive note, having Pallas in the 12th house can bring actually excellent dream interpreters, or people who have that intuition when it comes to dreams, or when it comes to intuition had during states of highness. It could also bring people who are needed abroad or far away, and people who perhaps are needed to help with strategy in some sense, or to mediate, or you could be called to go far away or abroad to help a friend, and that could be like a very significant theme or pattern or experience in your life. Okay, that's all I have for Pallas, or Pallas Athena in the birth chart. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know in the comments where you have Pallas, and let's talk about it. Love you very much, and take care. Bye-bye.